Picture this. It's a sunny Saturday morning in Chicago. You're walking down a familiar street in your neighborhood. Maybe it's the South Side. Maybe it's the West Side. You pass by Mrs. Johnson's house, the one with the beautiful garden. But wait, the windows are boarded up. The for sale sign has been there for months. You keep walking. The corner store where you used to buy candy as a kid? Closed. The playground where children's laughter used to fill the air? Empty. It's quieter now. Too quiet. This isn't just happening on one street. It's happening across entire neighborhoods. Across the whole city. And here's the thing that should make your heart sink. Chicago's population today is lower than it was in 1920. Let that sink in. Over 100 years of progress gone. Today, I'm going to tell you a story. Not with statistics thrown at you like a textbook, but like I'm sitting across from you at a coffee shop, explaining why a city that was once America's proudest is watching its people walk away. And why this matters not just to Chicago, but to every American city facing the same crisis. Let me paint you a picture of what's really happening. Since 2014, Chicago has been on a losing streak. Every single year for the past decade, more people have left than arrived. We're talking about 128,000 residents gone. That's like an entire city the size of Charleston, South Carolina, just vanishing from Chicago. But here's where it gets personal, where the numbers stop being just numbers and start being about real families, real dreams. Chicago lost over 250,000 black residents since 2000. These weren't just people moving from one apartment to another. These are middle-class families, teachers, nurses, small business owners who packed up their entire lives and left. And the children. Oh, the children. The number of black children in Chicago dropped by 49% since 2000. Think about what that means. Half the kids are gone. Half the birthday parties, half the school concerts, half the future that could have been built here. Chicago Public Schools? They used to serve over 400,000 students. Today, less than half that number. Entire schools have closed. Buildings that once echoed with learning now sit empty, like monuments to what was lost. In 2022 alone, Chicago lost 33,000 people. That made it the second highest population loss of any city in America that year. Only New York City lost more, and New York has 3 times as many people to begin with. Here's the question that should haunt every city leader. Where did they go, and why didn't they stay? I want you to imagine you're Maria. She's lived in Chicago her whole life. She's a teacher, married, with 2 kids. She loves her city, the lakefront, the pizza, the neighborhoods with character and history. But Maria's been doing math lately, and the numbers are making her cry. Her property tax bill just went up by $2,500 in 1 year. Not a typo. $2,500. Her home in Park Forest, the median tax, is now $7,152 a year. That's not her mortgage. That's just what she pays the government to own a home she's already bought. Now add it up with her. Illinois has the second highest property tax rate in America. Chicago homeowners pay an average of 1.52% of their home's value every year just in property taxes. If you own a $300,000 home, that's $4,560 a year, money that doesn't fix your roof, doesn't pay for your kids' college, doesn't build your future. But wait, there's more. Illinois ranks 38th out of 50 states for business tax climate. The state income tax is 4.95%. Sales tax averages 8.92%. And if you die in Illinois, there's an estate tax waiting for your family. One mother I read about said it plainly. Even if I sold my house, where would I go that I could afford? Because here's the cruel irony: her property value went up on paper, which means higher taxes, but she can't actually sell it for enough to escape the burden. A study found that 47% of Illinois residents want to leave the state, and 20% said they'd likely leave within the next year. These aren't just statistics. These are your neighbors quietly packing boxes while you sleep. The question burns: how did it get this bad? Now let's talk about something that doesn't make the evening news as much as it should: the companies. In 2022, Boeing, the massive aerospace company that had called Chicago home since 2001, announced it was moving its headquarters to Virginia. Gone. Then Caterpillar, which had been in Illinois for nearly a century, picked up 230 corporate jobs and moved them to Texas. Citadel, the hedge fund run by billionaire Ken Griffin, relocated from Chicago to Miami. Griffin didn't mince words about why. He said, and I quote, "I've had multiple colleagues mugged at gunpoint. I've had a colleague stabbed on the way to work. Countless issues of burglary. Tyson Foods closed its Chicago offices, bringing 1,000 employees back to Arkansas. T-Tex Company left for North Carolina. Guggenheim Partners quietly slipped away to Miami. These weren't small mom-and-pop shops. These were Fortune 500 companies. The kind that employ thousands, that sponsor little league teams, that donate to local charities, that make a city feel alive with opportunity. McDonald's CEO Chris Kempczinski, whose company headquarters is in Chicago, publicly said, "We have violent crime happening in our restaurants. We're seeing homelessness issues in our restaurants. We're having drug overdoses that are happening in our restaurants." He flat out said it makes recruiting people to work in Chicago nearly impossible. The Chicago Mercantile Exchange CEO warned that if taxes get worse, they have a clause in their lease allowing them to just leave. The Chicago Mercantile Exchange. In Chicago, when companies leave, they take their jobs. They take their tax revenue. They take the ecosystem of restaurants, dry cleaners, and coffee shops that existed because of their employees. It's not just one company leaving. It's a domino effect of economic collapse. And this is where the story gets darker. Let me be straight with you about something uncomfortable. Chicago has a reputation. And while crime has actually decreased from its 2021 peak, perception matters as much as reality. In 2021, Chicago hit 805 homicides, a 25-year high. Yes, that number dropped to 621 by 2023, which is real progress. But here's what the numbers don't tell you. It's not spread evenly. Black Chicagoans are 20 times more likely to become victims of gun violence than white Chicagoans. 20 times. Let me say that again because it should make you angry. 20 times. Aggravated assaults hit a 20-year high in 2024 with over 8,000 cases. Motor vehicle theft spiked so dramatically in 2022 that the rate more than doubled from earlier years. Robberies are up 21%. But here's what really matters. It's where these crimes happen. The South and West Sides, predominantly black and working-class neighborhoods, bear the weight of this violence. These communities aren't just losing people. They're losing hope. The arrest rate? Only 1 in 7 violent crimes results in an arrest. If you're a victim, there's an 86% chance no one will be held accountable. That's not a justice system. That's abandonment. Parents are making impossible choices. Stay in the city they love but fear for their children's safety? Or leave everything familiar behind for a chance at a safer tomorrow. One parent told researchers, "I can't let my kids play outside anymore." Another said, "I hear gunshots and I don't even call 911 anymore because I know nothing will happen." This is what drives people out. Not just crime statistics, but the feeling of being unsafe in your own home. The feeling that your government has given up on protecting you. But there's another layer to this crisis. Remember Maria, our teacher? She's not just worried about her property taxes. She's worried about her kids' education. Chicago Public Schools lost 225,000 students between 2010 and 2021. Schools are closing left and right. The ones that remain open, they're struggling. Illinois spends more per pupil than neighboring states, yet the outcomes remain dismal. Why? Because so much of that money doesn't go to teachers or classrooms or books. It goes to pensions. Here's a number that should make you furious. 80% of Chicago property taxes go toward pension debt. Not schools, not police, not fixing roads. Pensions for workers who've already retired. The typical Chicago homeowner now pays $2,059 in property taxes just for Chicago public schools. That's up 62% from 15 years ago. More than half of your property tax bill goes to CPS, a system that's educating half as many kids as it used to. And here's the kicker. Illinois has $211 billion in unfunded pension liabilities. That's money promised, but not saved. That's a debt bomb sitting there, ticking, that will eventually explode into even higher taxes. Parents look at this and think, I'm paying more for worse schools. My property taxes keep going up while the quality of education goes down. The schools are closing. My neighborhood is deteriorating. What would you do? The answer is obvious, and it's breaking the city apart. So when people leave Chicago, where do they go? Florida gained 19,099 Illinois residents in 2022 alone. Texas welcomed thousands more. Indiana, Wisconsin, Arizona states with lower taxes, better business climates, and promises of safer neighborhoods. These aren't random destinations. People are moving to states that want them. States that compete for residents with lower costs of living. States where a middle-class salary can actually buy you a middle-class life. Here's what really hurts. Illinois lost over 40,000 households earning $200,000 or more. These are doctors, lawyers, executives, entrepreneurs. They represent just 6% of tax filers, but contribute nearly 40% of the state's personal income tax revenue. When they leave, who pays for what they left behind? The people who can't afford to leave. The working-class families barely hanging on. It's creating a doom loop. High earners leave to less tax revenue, to services cut or taxes raised, to more people leave to even less revenue. Round and round. One family I read about described their decision. We love Chicago. We cried when we left, but we couldn't afford to stay and give our kids the life they deserved. Chicago isn't just losing people. It's losing exactly the people a city needs to thrive: young families, educated workers, entrepreneurs, taxpayers. And here's what keeps me up at night. Houston is growing. If current trends continue, it will overtake Chicago as America's third largest city by 2035. Think about that symbolism. The city that gave us the skyscraper, that rebuilt itself after a great fire, that was Carl Sandburg's city of big shoulders, overtaken by a city that didn't even exist as a major metropolis a generation ago. But here's what really matters. We're not just talking about Chicago. Detroit went through this. Baltimore is going through this. Philadelphia is watching nervously. San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York, they're all dealing with variations of the same crisis. What we're seeing isn't just about one city's failures. We're watching what happens when the cost of living outpaces the quality of life. When taxes rise but services decline. When crime makes people afraid and governments seem helpless to stop it. The people leaving Chicago aren't giving up on cities. They're giving up on cities that don't work anymore. But, and this is crucial, it doesn't have to be this way. Other cities have turned it around. New York reduced crime dramatically in the 1990s. Indianapolis reformed its tax structure. Houston diversified its economy. It's possible, but it requires political courage that Chicago's leaders haven't shown. The question isn't whether Chicago can survive this. Cities are resilient. The question is, what kind of Chicago will emerge? Will it be a smaller, poorer city where only the very rich and the very poor remain? Or will leaders finally make the hard choices needed to bring people back? So here's where we are. Chicago has lost 128,000 people in a decade. Its population is the lowest it's been in over a century. Major corporations are leaving. Crime is concentrated in communities that were already struggling. Property taxes are crushing the middle class. Schools are closing, and nearly half of Illinois residents want to leave. But here's what I want you to understand. Every person who left was someone's neighbor, someone's friend, someone who loved Chicago and wanted to stay but couldn't. They're not villains for leaving. They're families making impossible choices with limited options. The real question isn't why are people leaving Chicago? The real question is, why haven't the people in power done enough to make them stay? If you're watching this from Chicago, I see you. I know this isn't easy to hear. If you're watching from another city, pay attention. This could be your story next. And if you're someone with the power to change things, a mayor, a governor, a city council member, I'm begging you, listen to the people packing their boxes before they all disappear. Thanks for watching. If this video made you feel something, share it. Let's start a conversation that might actually save a great American city. I'll see you in the next one.